Hey there. Previously I've shown you how we can make stylized hair more easily and faster, but there I focused more on the mechanics of how we can create the strand shape, but I never really showed how we can actually groom the hairstyle. And the reason is normally it takes quite a long time to make hair, like several hours or maybe days. And no one's gonna watch a video that long, so I'm gonna show a time lapse of the process and just gonna talk over it at the key moments. But before I start, I'd like to say that the previous method that I've showed was okay, but I wasn't really happy with it because we had to go into the node tree and do stuff there, like play with the float curve to adjust the profile and duplicate settings to have them unique. So I've recently reworked it and now it's fully done from within the modifier. No more duplicating stuff, it's now much more coherent. So if you haven't, go and download the updated version, I've linked it below. But here I'm actually gonna use a much more advanced version of this tool that I've been recently working on. And it has a ton of added features for stylized hair, like really easy curly hair that we're gonna see here. And actually I was testing this here, sort of in the field, and I can report that it works really well, really easy and really fun to use. And it can do other stuff too, like braids and profiles. Everything is going to be fully procedural, and you'll see. I'm calling it a monster node because it's really big and very powerful. I just have to finish it and package it, and it's coming out soon. Now, when it comes to the grooming, my biggest piece of advice is know what you're trying to do. And what I mean with this is it short? Is it long hair? What are you actually trying to do, right? And the biggest thing is to have a reference. It is very hard to do something from imagination alone, but when you have a reference, it's like there, like make this style. And I can focus on actually making the hair rather than thinking what to do. And later when we have the hair, you can then tweak it the way you want. So my biggest piece of advice is have a reference. Here you can see this is, how can I describe? Straight at the top, curly at the bottom. And I chose this because it's gonna allow me to test my procedural curls to see how easy they are to make. So with that, let's go into the video. So first I'm gonna select part of the scalp to be my base mesh. I'm gonna use a hair strand that I already had a material and a material control setup for it. And I'm gonna import some profile curve assets. And now I'm just gonna start grooming. Here I'll use the annotate tool to draw the parting line. This will help me with placing the hair strands on the scalp. And of course this is based on my reference, for you it will be different. I'm gonna place the strands on top of the head and groom them down. And here I'm just trying to identify and match hair strands from my reference and match the hair shape from the front. And then I'll go into 3D space to place them in a position where it makes sense, while still trying to keep the camera view shape. There you saw me playing with the procedural curves, and at first I wasn't really sure how to use them. I kept trying to micro adjust, but a better way is to groom the general direction of the strand and let the procedural curves do the rest of the styling. So I quickly got the hang of it. When you first start the hair, you get the blank canvas feel where there's not enough strands and you feel, this doesn't look any good. But keep adding strands and don't worry too much for the details. Once you have a full head of hair, you can start to adjust them more finely. Now I'm going to the other side and I want to show you something. When you have the forehand strands going to the side like this, the hair will look kind of flat. If you curve them like this, from the back, going forwards and back and down, it makes the hairstyle more fuller. It's an easy mistake to make and you think, why is my face looking weird? Something is off, right? Have the hair curve forwards like this. Now going to the back of the head, we don't have a reference, so I'm just imagining how it might look based on the view from the reference. But you can get a similar photo of somebody from the back and try to make that. Here I just go by few. And now I'm starting to have fun. Once you have more hair strands, I can begin to interplay them together with each other and make interesting shapes happening. And this is where my procedural setup for hair curves really helps. Using the old method, I almost dreaded adding new hair strands, but here I'm looking forward for that. And sculpting the hair strands really makes this process enjoyable. With this one, I changed the profile for a more flatter one because I didn't want to give more volume here. I just wanted to make this bank cover the rest of the hair, again based on my reference. Here I'll add some finer strands to fill the front of the hairline. By the way, this window you see popping up is my tool shelf. I like to have the spacebar as my tool selection, so I'm constantly switching between the comb and smooth tool. They are the ones you're gonna use the most with this workflow. Here I'm using the back hair strands to fill the space behind the neck and basically cover any holes that you might see from the front. This will give the illusion for a more full set of hair in the back. Here I try to make the curves play with each other to make it more interesting. This is what Bob Ross might say is a happy little accidents, but I'm trying to interplay them together while I'm trying to avoid the many intersections of the geometry. Here I start to add more finer hair strands to serve as a filler and also to make the hair more lively. And the general approach that I take is I identify where I want a fine strand and copy the closest one already there and move the copy to the new position. And did I mention that I really love the procedural curls? They make the styling process so much faster. So I'm really excited for this new product and I think you'll like it too. don't be afraid to go into edit mode and do adjustments there. You can see the ear popping out here. And I didn't want to increase the volume of the hair to cover it up. So here you see me adding the ear vertices to a vertex group that is going to be used for a mask modifier to hide parts of the geometry. I also hide limbs and the bottom portion of the body. And this actually is a technique that we use all the time because you don't really want to spend time on something that no one's gonna see anyway. So just hide it and forget about it. And now I'm really adding the finishing touches, trying to cover any exposed parts of the scalp, and also keeping in mind that I have to stop at some point because I was kind of having fun, and you can go on forever adjusting this and never really be satisfied with the result, especially when it's so easy to tweak the shapes. So at some point you have to cut it and say it's done and not spend way too much time on it. So at this stage I was like, okay, I have to wind this down, finish it up and move on. So there's the finished project. I hope you liked this video and I'll see you soon. Bye.